All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're diving into something that, well, it sounds pretty futuristic, like straight out of sci-fi, honestly. Decentralized identity. On the blockchain, no less.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah, right. We've got this super interesting article from Cointelegraph Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain news to kind of, be our roadmap here.
Excellent source.
It is. I always love Cointelegraph. Anyway, their name's a little long, but it's basically like the idea is imagine you completely control your online identity. Not Google, not Facebook,
Right.
just you. You're in charge of everything.
I like it already.
It sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But is it really all it's cracked up to be? Like, is this actually going to happen, or is it,
Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Exactly, that's what we're going to unpack. So
Yes.
the article starts off with a definition
Right.
of decentralized identity. And it says it's like this idea of taking control away from all those big centralized powers, like governments and big tech companies, and putting it back into the hands of the individual.
The people.
The people, power to the people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this sounds pretty revolutionary, honestly, but also a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little scary.
Yeah, I can see that.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it is a big shift, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And, like you said, it definitely does come with, its
Yeah.
own challenges. It's not all, going to be perfect.
Right.
But I think to really understand why this is such a big deal,
Yeah.
we kind of have to look at the problems with our current systems, like how things work now.
Right.
Think about all those data breaches. we hear about,
Yeah.
like constantly, right?
It seems like every week there's a new one.
It's like every other day, seriously.
Yeah.
In 2023 alone, over 4 billion records were exposed.
That is a terrifying number.
That's crazy. And then on top of that, you've got, the constant worry about who's watching what we're doing online.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that whole surveillance thing.
Yeah, exactly. So decentralized identity is, it aims to address those issues head on.
Okay, so basically, fewer data breaches, more privacy.
That's the idea.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But how does it, actually work? I mean, blockchain is already kind of like a mind bend for a lot of people.
It's a rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah. So how does this work?
Well, the article actually does a pretty good job, I think, of breaking it down,
Okay.
step by step.
Okay.
Essentially, these decentralized identity systems, they use the blockchain to create like a framework that's secure and user-centric. The user was at the center of it all.
Okay.
So there's 3 main components here.
Okay.
So you've got decentralized identifiers, also called DDs.
DDs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then you've got verifiable credentials,
VCs.
VCs. And finally, identity wallets.
So DDs, VCs, and identity wallets.
That's it. Those are your building blocks.
Okay, that's a mouthful, though.
Yeah, it is a little jargony, isn't it?
Yeah. Could you maybe, unpack those a little bit for us?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think our listeners would appreciate that.
Okay, so think of a DID, like imagine it's your digital passport,
Okay.
right? And it's one that you completely control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's this unique ID, digital ID, stored on the blockchain.
Right.
But, this is important, it's not directly linked to all your personal info.
Oh.
So that helps protect your privacy.
So it's like a secret code that represents me online,
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
but doesn't give away all my juicy details.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Okay, good. Now let's talk about verifiable credentials.
All right. VCs.
Yes. So these are kind of like the digital versions of, your driver's license or your diploma,
Okay.
things like that. They're issued by these trusted entities, the DMV or a university.
Right.
And the cool thing is you can share them selectively online without revealing all your personal info.
So instead of carrying around a physical wallet stuffed with all this stuff,
Yeah.
you just have these digital credentials
You got it.
that you can share whenever you need to.
That's the idea.
Okay.
Much more efficient, much more secure.
Yeah, I like it.
And then to manage all of this, you have these identity wallets.
Yeah.
And think of it like a digital keychain,
Yeah.
right? For your whole digital identity.
Mhm.
And that's where you store all your DIDs and your VCs and keep everything safe and organized.
Got it. So you got your digital ID,
Mhm.
your digital credentials,
Yep.
and then a safe place to keep it all.
Exactly.
Okay. But how does this play out in a real world situation?
Yeah, good question.
If I was, I don't know, applying for a loan, for example.
Okay, perfect example. So let's say you're applying for a loan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you would be the holder of your decentralized identity.
Right.
Okay. The bank, in this case, would be the issuer because they need to verify your identity,
Right.
and then the credit bureau, providing your credit history, that would be the verifier.
Okay. So it's kind of like showing your ID to a bouncer at a bar.
Yeah.
The verifier, my driver's license is the verifiable credential.
Right.
I'm the holder, but like I'm only sharing my age, not, my address and all that other stuff.
Perfect analogy. That's
Okay.
exactly how it works.
Okay.
And the really neat part is it's all done with cryptographic proof.
Cryptographic proof? Is that like a super secret code thing?
It's pretty much, yeah. It basically means you're proving your identity without actually showing all your sensitive data.
So like proving you have the key to a lock, but not actually giving the key away.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
It keeps your data secure and private.
That's pretty slick. All right, so benefits. Like, why should anyone listening right now care about this?
Yeah, great question.
Well, what's in it for them?
Well, the article highlights a bunch of key benefits. But I think the most important one is you have complete control over your data.
Okay.
You decide who gets access to what information.
Like, I'm the gatekeeper.
You are. And then, on top of that, blockchain is super secure.
Right.
So it makes it way harder for, hackers and all those bad guys to steal your info.
Okay.
And then finally, you only need to share the absolute minimum info required,
Right.
which helps protect your privacy even further.
Okay. So it's like putting the power back in the hands of the user.
Exactly.
I mean, I can definitely see the appeal in that,
Yeah.
But are there any downsides? Like, there's always a catch, right?
Well, of course. No technology is perfect, right?
Right.
And the article does acknowledge that.
Okay.
So one of the biggest challenges is adoption.
Mm.
Getting people to switch over to these new systems.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah, it's like trying to convince everyone to like switch to a new type of currency or something.
It is. It's a big ask.
Right.
And then you've got, of course, the regulatory hurdles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure all this stuff complies with all the laws and regulations, like GDPR.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big task.
Yeah, definitely.
And then there's, the article mentioned this, the key management issue.
Ah, yeah.
So if I lose my private key,
Yeah.
am I just like locked out of my own identity?
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's like, great power, great responsibility, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have ultimate control, but you also have to be super careful.
Okay. And what about, what's the other thing?
Oh, scalability.
Scalability, right?
Blockchain's still evolving, right?
Right.
So handling like huge amounts of transactions efficiently, that's still a challenge.
Okay. So it's not all, perfect and easy.
Not yet, at least.
There's still some work to do.
There is.
But the potential's there.
Absolutely.
I mean, the article mentioned like 85% of people are worried about how advertisers are using their data.
It's a real concern.
That's a huge number. So if you're listening right now, I'm curious, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about your data being used? It's something to think about for sure.
It is. It's a real issue for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights why, this whole conversation about decentralized identity is so important.
Totally. All right, so let's move on to some specific examples of how this could like impact different industries.
Yeah.
The article talks about a bunch of use cases, especially in finance and healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes those sectors like such good candidates for this kind of technology?
Well, I think one of the biggest impacts could be in finance.
Okay.
Particularly with, that whole know your customer process or
Right.
KYC.
KYC, yeah.
Like imagine opening a bank account or applying for a loan, but without all that paperwork.
Ooh, that would be amazing.
Right.
I hate digging up all those documents and like filling out the same forms over and over again.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
So decentralized identity could really streamline that whole process, make it, faster, more efficient, more secure.
Okay, I'm liking this already.
And remember all those data breaches we talked about?
Yeah, the billions of records.
Billions, yeah. So imagine the impact this could have on, reducing that risk.
Right, yeah.
Because you're shifting away from these big centralized data stores,
Mm-hmm.
making it harder for hackers to, get their hands on all that sensitive info.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about healthcare?
Yeah, healthcare is another area where this could be huge.
Okay.
It could give patients total control over their medical records.
Wow.
Imagine that, right? Being able to choose which healthcare providers can see which parts of your medical history.
Yeah, that would be a game changer.
It would.
I've definitely had like experiences where I felt kind of iffy about, how much information was being shared between, different doctors or hospitals.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. And unfortunately, it's becoming more and more relevant, with all these cyber attacks happening.
Right?
Like, did you know that cyber attacks on healthcare data storage actually increased by 75% in 2023?
75%. That is scary.
It is. It really highlights the need for, better security in healthcare.
Yeah.
And this decentralized identity thing could be a really promising solution.
Okay, interesting. So it sounds like it could really benefit like a lot of different industries.
Definitely. And beyond that, it could also help people who, maybe they don't have traditional forms of ID.
Like, what do you mean?
Like, think about people in developing countries or people experiencing homelessness.
Right.
It could give them a way to, have a digital identity, which could help them access services they might not be able to otherwise.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
It's about more than just convenience, right?
Yeah,
It's about creating a more inclusive system.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it could also help with that whole like frustration of constantly having to verify your identity on all these different platforms, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who hasn't experienced that?
It's the worst.
It is. But with the IDs and the blockchain, you can just share your verified info seamlessly across a ton of different services.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, much more efficient.
So just to clarify, when the article talks about decentralized identity and self-sovereign identity, are those like the same thing?
It's a great question because, honestly, a lot of people use them interchangeably.
Yeah.
But there is a subtle difference.
Okay, I was hoping you could break that down for us because it does get a little confusing.
Totally. So think of it this way, okay? Decentralized identity is the broader concept.
Okay.
And self-sovereign identity, or SSI, is like a specific type.
So it's like decentralized identity is the umbrella.
Yeah, like the big category.
And SSI is like underneath that.
Perfect, yeah.
Oh.
So with decentralized identity, you're taking control away from those central authorities.
Right.
But there might still be some, reliance on third parties.
Okay.
But with SSI, you have total control over everything.
Okay.
Every aspect of your digital identity, how it's made, how it's used, how it's shared, the whole 9 miles.
Wow.
You're the boss.
That sounds pretty empowering. Can you give us an example, like to illustrate the difference?
For sure. So imagine you're logging into a website, right?
Got it.
With decentralized identity, you might use an app, a decentralized ID app,
Right.
to verify your credentials
Mm-hmm.
without having to use like Google or Facebook.
Right.
So that's a step towards decentralization.
Okay.
But with SSI, you'd have this totally self-managed digital identity that you control entirely. And you'd use that to prove your identity to the website.
Oh, I see.
Like showing a digital ID that was issued by, a trusted provider, but it's managed completely by you.
So with SSI, I'm not like relying on some company to like vouch for me. I'm in charge.
You are. You become your own digital identity provider.
Okay. That's a pretty big change.
It is.
So what does the future hold for all this?
Good question.
Is this just like a fad, or is it something we should all be paying attention to?
Well, the article, they seem pretty optimistic. They think this is going to be big. They see it as like this crucial part of creating a more secure and private Web3.
Web3, the next iteration of the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it's not just hype either.
Okay.
Like we're already seeing industries, like you mentioned, finance, healthcare, education. They're all exploring these blockchain solutions for identity.
So it's actually happening.
It is.
That's encouraging. But what about those challenges we talked about?
Yeah.
Scalability, interoperability. Is there any progress on those fronts?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, blockchain is always evolving, right?
Right.
Developers are constantly working to make it better. And we're seeing like big improvements in those areas, like making things work together more smoothly.
Okay.
So it's definitely moving in the right direction.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And what about governments and regulators?
Yeah. How they feel about all this.
Yeah. Are they on board with the whole decentralized identity thing?
It's interesting. We're seeing a lot more interest from them, actually, all over the world. Governments are starting to see the potential benefits.
Oh, okay.
But they're also trying to figure out, how to regulate it.
Right.
How to make sure it's secure and compliant.
It's like a balancing act.
It is. But the fact that they're, actually engaged, I think that's a good sign. It means they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe this will become like a normal part of our online lives.
Yeah, maybe in the future it'll just be like how things are.
It's possible.
Wow, this has been fascinating.
It's a good topic, right?
It really is. We've talked about so much, the technical stuff, the potential impact,
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but before we wrap things up completely, I think we should take a minute to just kind of like reflect on what we've learned,
Good idea.
and then we'll leave you with some food for thought. So stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So we just spent like a whole chunk of time talking about decentralized identity.
We did.
The what, the how, the good, the bad, you know.
The whole shebang.
Yeah, but before we go too far down that road, I
Yeah.
kind of want to take a step back and think about like what this actually means for you,
Right.
the listener.
Yeah, for the folks at home tuning in.
Exactly. So paint a picture for me. Like, what does a world powered by decentralized identity actually look like? Like, how would our everyday lives actually change?
Well, first off, I think you could say goodbye to those massive data breaches.
Oh, man, I would love that.
Where your info's not just sitting in some huge database,
Yeah.
Controlled by some big company. Instead, you're in control.
Mm.
You have the security, you have the privacy.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, those are pretty valuable these days.
They are. They're becoming more and more important, as everything moves online.
It's like almost like taking back ownership of yourself, your
Wow.
digital self.
Yeah. It is. It's about reclaiming that control,
Yeah.
Well, think about it. How much of our lives are online now?
Oh, gosh, practically everything.
It's everything. Our money, our health records, the way we connect with people.
Even like shopping and...
Oh, yeah, they know everything.
Yeah.
Everything we buy, everything we look at, it's all tracked.
So decentralized identity could, like, change all that.
It could. It could fundamentally shift how we interact with the whole digital world.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
It does. It kind of does.
Like something out of a, I don't know, like a futuristic movie?
No, right.
But you're saying this is, like, actually possible?
It is. It's happening. Now, of course, there'll be bumps along the way.
Right.
We've talked about some of the challenges.
Yeah, the adoption, the regulation, all that stuff.
All those things need to be figured out. But the potential benefits,
Yeah.
I mean, they're so big
Yeah.
that it's definitely worth paying attention to this.
So even if it's not perfect yet, it's worth keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. We're talking about, like, a whole new way of managing our digital lives.
A paradigm shift, is that what they call it?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. So as we're kind of wrapping up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question
Okay.
that really got me thinking.
Okay.
The article touched on it briefly, but I think it deserves a little more attention.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So if decentralized identity
Yeah.
does become the norm,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like it very well could,
It could.
how might it change our relationship with technology,
Right.
with governments, even with each other?
Wow, that's a big question.
It is.
And there's not an easy answer.
Right.
It's asking us to imagine this world
Yeah.
where people have this level of control over their digital lives that we've never seen before.
Right.
And with that control, there are all these new possibilities. Some good, some maybe not so good. We don't know yet.
It's like opening a door
Yeah.
to a whole new world, but we don't know what's on the other side.
Exactly. Like, how will this change, who has the power?
Yeah.
Will it make people more empowered, or could it lead to new forms of inequality?
Right.
It really makes you think about the ethical side of all this.
Yeah.
And how it could change society as a whole.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about all the different ways this could go.
It is. It is.
But it's also kind of exciting, right?
Absolutely.
To be part of something that could be this transformative.
It's a really interesting time to be alive.
It is. It is. And that's why I think it's so important to be having these conversations now
Yeah.
while the technology is still being developed,
We need to be thinking about these things now for sure.
We can't just like sit back and let the future happen to us.
No, we got to be active participants.
Yeah.
You got to shape it.
Exactly. And that starts with understanding the technology
That's
that's
right.
driving all this change.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. So for our listeners out there, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed
Yeah.
by all this information, I get it.
It's a lot.
This is complicated stuff.
It is.
But don't tune out.
No, stay with us.
Yeah, stay with us. Take some time to, think about what we've talked about, do some more research,
Yeah.
maybe even like start experimenting with some of these tools.
There are some cool tools out there.
And there are. This is a conversation that's just beginning, so we
Yeah.
encourage you to join in.
We want to hear from you.
Now, before we wrap things up completely, there's one more important aspect of decentralized identity that I think we need to explore.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so we've talked about like control, security, even this whole idea of like a digital self.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's another piece to this decentralized identity puzzle that I think is like really powerful.
Okay.
And it's this concept of digital sovereignty.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, right?
It's a good term.
It really captures like the essence
Yeah.
of what this whole movement is about,
Now,
you know?
simply.
Breaking free from like all those centralized powers and kind of forging a new path where individuals like have the power to, you know,
To decide their own fate, digitally speaking.
yeah, to shape their own digital destinies.
I love that.
Yeah, right.
Shaping our digital destiny.
It sounds so empowering.
It is.
But I gotta be honest,
Yeah.
when I first heard about like decentralized identity, my eyes kind of glazed over.
I get it.
It just seems so like
Yeah.
technical and complicated and like not really relevant to me, you know?
It's understandable.
But now hearing you talk about it,
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how it connects to like these bigger ideas about like freedom and autonomy and
Exactly.
yeah, it's like it's pretty profound actually.
It is.
When you really think about it.
It's more than just tech. You know, it's
Yeah.
a whole new way of thinking about things.
Yeah, it's a shift.
A
Yeah.
shift in how we think about power
Yeah.
and control in this digital world.
Right, in this digital age.
Exactly.
And that's why I think these conversations are so important.
They are.
Like now, while the technology is still like,
Yeah, well, it's still early.
yeah, developing,
We're
evolving.
to get it right
They're about to get it right.
from the start.
Exactly. So we've talked about some of the challenges, the adoption, the regulation, the scalability stuff.
Right.
But there's also like this ethical dimension, right?
Absolutely.
Like how do we make sure that this doesn't like accidentally
Yeah.
create like new forms of inequality or exclusion?
It's a valid concern for sure.
Yeah,
We don't want to, solve one problem just to create a new one.
right, exactly.
So, for example, like if access to these systems becomes like dependent on,
Yeah.
having a bunch of money or having like really advanced technical skills, that could actually make things worse.
It could create a divide, yeah.
Exactly. It could create a digital divide.
So we got to make sure that these systems are designed to be
Yeah.
accessible to everyone,
Accessible to everybody.
regardless of like their background, their income, their tech skills.
It has to be for everyone, or it's not really decentralized.
Right, right. So it's about like building a system that's truly decentralized.
Yes.
In every sense of the word.
In every way.
Not just like technically,
Right.
but also in terms of like access and opportunity.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to
Yeah.
get everyone involved
Yeah.
in this conversation. We need the developers,
Yeah.
the policymakers,
Right.
the academics, the activists, but most importantly,
Yeah.
we need the everyday users.
The people.
Yeah, the people who are going to be actually using these systems.
Right.
Because only by working together
Yeah.
can we make sure that this technology actually lives up to its potential.
Right.
And creates, that better future we're all hoping for.
A better, more equitable, more empowering digital future.
That's the goal.
I love that. It's not just about like building new technology.
It's bigger than that.
It's about building a better world.
Exactly.
And we all have a role to play.
We do.
All right, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. This has been an amazing deep dive
It has,
into the world of decentralized identity.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. We started by, defining what it is, how it works.
Mhm.
We talked about the benefits, the challenges.
Yeah.
And then we even took a look at like the bigger picture, right?
The big picture stuff.
The impact on society, the ethics, the future.
It's all connected.
It really is.
It's all part of the same story.
A huge thank you to our expert.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure having you here.
It's been fun.
And to our listeners, we hope this episode has like piqued your interest.
Yeah. Get out there and learn more.
Maybe even inspired you to like get involved in shaping this new frontier.
It's an exciting time.
It is. So stay informed, stay engaged, and as always,
Keep diving deep.
keep diving deep. We've got links to the Cointelegraph article and some other resources in the show notes, so if you want to learn more, definitely check those out.
Yeah, do your homework.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
We really do. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's shaping our world. Until then, take care and keep exploring.